Prologue. In the city of Verona, two powerful families, the Montagues and the Capulets, are locked in an ancient feud. Their hatred has spilled into the streets, bringing bloodshed and chaos to the city. But from these enemies will come two young lovers, Romeo of the Montagues and Juliet of the Capulets. Their love is pure, but it is marked by fate. The story we now follow tells how their passion will lead not to happiness, but to tragedy, a tragedy that will finally bring peace to their warring families. Act I. The play begins with violence. In the streets of Verona, servants of the Montague and Capulet households exchange insults. The quarrel quickly escalates into a sword fight. Benvolio, Romeo's cousin, tries to restore peace, but Tybalt, Juliet's hot-blooded cousin, arrives eager to fight. Soon the citizens of Verona are caught up in the brawl. The prince arrives, furious at the constant unrest, and declares that the next person to shed blood will pay with his life. Meanwhile we meet young Romeo Montague. He is not involved in the fight, his heart is heavy with sorrow. Romeo is hopelessly in love with a woman named Rosaline, who does not return his affection. He wanders alone, sighing and writing poems, consumed by unrequited love. That same day, Paris, a wealthy nobleman, asks Lord Capulet for permission to marry Juliet, his only daughter. Capulet replies that Juliet is still too young, not yet 14. Still, he invites Paris to a great feast that evening, suggesting he woo Juliet gently and win her heart. Romeo, still lovesick for Rosaline, agrees to attend the feast in disguise after his cousin Benvolio convinces him. Go, Benvolio urges, look upon other beauties, and you will see that Rosaline is not the only star in the sky. That evening the Capulet household prepares for the grand celebration. Lady Capulet and Juliet's nurse speak to Juliet about marriage. They encourage her to consider Paris, describing him as a fine gentleman, a man of wax, perfect in form and manner. Juliet, obedient yet innocent, replies that she has not thought much about marriage, but she will observe Paris at the feast. When the party begins, Romeo, Benvolio, and their lively friend Mercutio slip into the Capulet home wearing masks. Mercutio entertains with his wild imagination, describing Queen Mab, the tiny fairy who visits dreamers at night. Romeo, however, feels uneasy, sensing that fate has something terrible in store for him. Inside the hall, music plays and dancers fill the floor. Romeo's eyes fall upon Juliet, and in that moment Rosaline is forgotten. Juliet's beauty overwhelms him. He whispers, "Did my heart love till now, forswear it? For I never saw true beauty till this night." The two approach and speak in tender, poetic words. Romeo takes Juliet's hand, calling it a holy shrine, and begs to kiss it. Their lips meet, and they are instantly bound by love. But their joy is shaken when Juliet learns his name. He is a Montague, her family's sworn enemy. Act Roman II. Despite the danger, Romeo cannot stay away. He slips into the Capulet orchard after the feast. There, beneath her balcony, he overhears Juliet confess her love for him. She laments that he is a Montague, her family's foe, crying, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet." Overcome, Romeo reveals himself, and the two pledge their devotion in secret. They agree to marry. At dawn, Romeo rushes to Friar Lawrence, a kindly priest. Romeo begs the friar to wed him and Juliet that very day. Though shocked at Romeo's sudden change of heart, for only yesterday he mourned Rosaline, the friar agrees, hoping this union may end the feud. Meanwhile, Juliet sends her nurse to meet Romeo. With comic fussing, the nurse brings back the news Juliet longs to hear. Romeo awaits her at Friar Lawrence's cell. There, in secret, Romeo and Juliet are joined in marriage, binding their hearts and souls together. Act Roman 3. But fate turns cruel. That same day, Tybalt, still angry that Romeo dared to attend the Capulet feast, seeks him out. Romeo, now secretly Tybalt's kinsman by marriage, refuses to fight. He calls Tybalt a family and begs for peace. Mercutio, furious at what he sees as cowardice, draws his sword. Romeo tries to intervene, but Tybalt fatally wounds Mercutio, who dies cursing both houses. A plague, O both your houses! Grief and rage overwhelm Romeo. Forgetting his vow of peace, he duels Tybalt and kills him. Shocked at his own deed, he flees. The prince arrives and, learning of the bloodshed, banishes Romeo from Verona. Juliet waits impatiently for her wedding night, dreaming of Romeo's embrace. Instead, she hears the terrible news. Her cousin Tybalt is dead, and her husband is banished. At first, she is torn with grief and anger, but her love for Romeo triumphs. That night, Romeo steals into her chamber, and they share a final night together before he must flee to Mantua at dawn. Meanwhile, Juliet's father decides to hasten her marriage to Paris, believing it will cheer her sorrow. He announces she will wed Paris in just a few days. Juliet, horrified, refuses. Enraged, Capulet threatens to cast her out if she disobeys. Even her mother will not protect her. Desperate, Juliet turns to Friar Lawrence once more. Act Roman 4. At the friar's cell, Juliet pleads for help. She declares she would rather die than marry Paris. Friar Lawrence devises a daring plan. Juliet will drink a potion that makes her appear dead for 2 days. Believing her lifeless, her family will lay her in the Capulet tomb. Then Romeo will return, and together they will escape. Juliet agrees with courage. That night she drinks the potion. The next morning her nurse discovers her body cold and still. The Capulets are devastated, and the wedding feast turns into a funeral. Juliet is placed in the family tomb. Act V. But fate intervenes again. In Mantua, Romeo awaits word from the friar. Instead, his servant brings dreadful news: Juliet is dead. Heartbroken, Romeo buys poison and hurries back to Verona. Meanwhile, Friar Lawrence sends a letter explaining the plan, but it never reaches Romeo. At the Capulet tomb, Paris comes to mourn Juliet. Romeo arrives, and Paris confronts him. They fight, and Paris is slain. Romeo enters the tomb and sees Juliet lying lifeless. He embraces her, whispers his final farewell, and drinks the poison. Dying, he kisses her lips one last time. Moments later, Juliet awakens. She sees Romeo dead beside her and realizes the terrible truth. Friar Lawrence arrives too late and urges her to flee, but Juliet refuses. She kisses Romeo's lips, hoping to die by his poison. When that fails, she takes his dagger and ends her life. The families rush to the tomb, horrified by what they see. Friar Lawrence reveals the whole story of the secret marriage, the potion, and the tragic misunderstandings. The Montagues and Capulets, struck with grief, finally reconcile. Closing reflection, the prince declares, never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Thus ends the story of Romeo and Juliet. Their love was stronger than the hatred of their families, but their fate was sealed by mischance and miscommunication. From their deaths came peace, but at a price too great to bear. Their tragedy remains one of the most enduring tales of love, passion, and the consequences of enmity.